Welcome to the battlefield. This is A View from the Bunker, live every Friday night, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. It's GMT -5 at blogtalkradio.com/PID Radio. Part of the PID Radio network, which sounds big, but it's really just me and Sharon. And Sam the Dachshund, who is asleep underneath his Colts binky in the corner of the room tonight. All right, 646-652-4429, the bunker phone open this hour. If you want to comment on last hour's discussion with Rob Skiba and the use of entertainment to try to present a message. Is that an appropriate approach for Christians to take? We can talk about that if you like. If you want to post your comments in the chat room, rather type than talk, it's blogtalkradio.com/PID Radio. Very active question and answer session taking place now as Rob Skiba has joined the chat room at blogtalkradio.com/PID Radio. So if you've got a question, if you got a question for Rob, who apparently got booted out of the chat room, but he's made it back in, you can interact directly with Rob there. There is a question that has been posted to Rob in the chat room, and I will toss it out for you to consider. Is it right for a professing Christian to put out something like this that will require an investment of a financial investment on the part of people to make it happen? I think that's a valid question, and Rob is addressing that right now in the chat room. So I will say this, that this particular approach, as Rob noted, does have some advantages from the standpoint of putting across the message. I mean, let's be honest. If people didn't suspend disbelief, and not just in a film, although a film is especially effective because you've got the visuals and you've got the sound and you're kind of immersed in a whole audio sensory experience, but even in just a written form, if this wasn't an effective way to communicate a message through the use of fiction, then Dan Brown wouldn't have drawn thousands upon thousands of pilgrims to Rosslyn Chapel in Scotland looking for the Holy Grail.
This is the first book in the Robert Langdon series. Dan Brown was really onto something when he wrote this. He was definitely onto this concept that very smart people in the 1600s were entertaining themselves in this art that they were creating.
The great thing about the book is, and all Dan's books, is that they are loaded with historical detail and an intense amount of research. It's really a gift. I mean, you just get to flip through and find out things you never knew. I think that's part of what people go to these movies for and what they buy Dan's books for, is that level of scholarship.
Galileo's third text.
For Angels and Demons, I did the bulk of the research before I wrote the novel. Made 3 trips to Italy, spent a lot of time in Rome and Vatican City, gathering information on churches and artwork and Vatican history.
What's great about the stories that Dan Brown creates is that they stimulate so much curiosity, discussion, and research. Everybody that I know gets involved with the project, working on it, having read the book, seeing our movie now. It drives them to the library. It sends them to the internet. They want to explore the Illuminati, and there's so much written about it. It's fascinating stuff. And it's the kind of thing that leads to a fascinating set of clues and a great mystery.
And essentially all Dan Brown did with the Da Vinci Code was repackage Holy Blood, Holy Grail by Bagent and Lee into a fictional form. Now, I tried to read Holy Blood, Holy Grail years ago when I was in my questing phase, trying to figure out how much of the Bible was actually true. I mean, literally true and accurate. And found out later that this was a process that my father, an engineer, had gone through himself, reading things like the Passover plot to see if maybe there was an alternate explanation for the existence of Christianity, besides the one in the Bible that made more sense. And Dad, with his engineer's brain, finally concluded that the only logical explanation for the existence of Christianity past the end of the first century was that the New Testament was really true. Found out that I guess I am indeed my father's son. I kind of followed the same path. But when you read a book like Holy Blood, Holy Grail, I couldn't get through it. It was so densely written, and there were so many leaps of logic that just couldn't be substantiated with the evidence that I just finally put it aside. I never finished the book. And I suspect a lot of other people felt the same way. I mean, it sold a lot of copies, but it didn't have the impact on society that Dan Brown's fictional work, The Da Vinci Code, did. And why is that? Well, it's because, as Rob pointed out, people have a natural suspension of disbelief when they go in to watch or read something fictional. And so Dan Brown effectively communicated his Gnostic hoo-ha in the Da Vinci Code and in Angels and Demons. Not so much, but certainly the Lost Symbol communicated that and managed to work in through including the Institute of Noetic Sciences in the Lost Symbol. Brown also managed to start pointing people toward the singularity. So why can't we as Christians use this method to communicate our ideas of the truth? That's exactly why Sharon and I chose to write fiction. The Laodicea Chronicles, Winds of Evil, The God Conspiracy, Signs and Wonders, Sharon's forthcoming novel, Doctrines of Demons. But the tightrope that we walk, of course, is how do you present that and put that out there and share that message without becoming a mercenary, as it were, without making it about the money. And that's a difficult tightrope to walk. We chose one path, and that we used a site out there, and we in fact, we could do it without this particular website, but I recorded a couple of my novels as free audiobooks that are posted now at podiobooks.com as a means to get the message out there without people having to pay for it. So that is one possibility. But it's a lot cheaper for me to do that sitting here in front of a microphone than it is to do what Rob Skiba is attempting to do with Seed the Series and film and produce a television program with production values that will appeal to people and that will draw people in, especially if they're not already inclined to believe the message. Sharon and I, when Seed is finally ready for the screen, of course, the subject matter will draw us in. We watch a lot of things that are that relate to this topic, and most of them are not produced from a Christian perspective. I mean, the subject matter is fascinating, and often as not, we're watching to find out what message is being put out there into the pop culture, so that we can discuss it and talk about it on PID Radio. So anyway, best of luck to Rob. And again, I'll share a little bit more about Seed the Series in terms of a character who will probably look familiar to you if you go to the website seedtheseries.com and click around a little bit. You'll probably discover who I'm talking about. And should point out that if you are really curious, Rob has graciously made the script for the pilot episode available to read for free at seedtheseries.com. It's available in PDF format. You can download it and read it and see what you think. Well, 646-652-4429 as we continue through the evening here on A View from the Bunker. Again, a very active chat room session going on with Rob Skiba, the gentleman behind the forthcoming series, Seed the Series. And I mentioned to you that the script of the pilot episode is online. You can take a look at that, download it, read it, and I'm sure that Rob will welcome your feedback, your suggestions perhaps. But when you go to the website, I want to just point you to one particular gentleman here. Under the link for the characters, there are some pictures there. These are types that Rob is looking for the characters that he's described in the pilot episode. And there's a gentleman there who's fourth from the left in the top row. He's the gentleman who's follically challenged, bearded gentleman. The character named Dr. Norman Vincent Kane. who Rob describes as a cross between Richard C. Hoagland and Tom Horn. So if that isn't enough to get you to download the PDF copy of the pilot episode of Seed and take a look at that, I don't know what will, because now I can't. I've read the episode, and while reading the description of the cross between Richard Hoagland and Tom Horn, created a very vivid mental image that helped to really, let's say, make it easier to picture what was going on in the scene. Meanwhile, keep your eyes on the Middle East and the sort of low-grade conflict that's taking place between Lebanon, or over Lebanon, between Syria and Iran on the one side, Israel and the United States on the other side. And interesting, isn't it, that it's taking place over Lebanon and possession thereof, considering all that we discussed regarding Mount Hermon in the first hour with Rob Skiba. And Mount Hermon, of course, is in southern Lebanon. Interesting, no? Coming up next Friday night, Brandon Barr, Mike Lynch, co-authors of the new novel American Midnight, on View from the Bunker, 10 p.m. Eastern Time. That's GMT-5 at blogtalkradio.com/PID Radio. Until next time, remember, we wrestle not against flesh and blood. I'm Derek Gilbert. This is A View from the Bunker.